So you're thinking about moving to the Sacramento area and you want a brand new construction home, a new home. Today we talk a little bit about lenders. They're going to try to get you pre-approved with their lender before you can even get a home. We're going to talk a little bit about the costs associated with going with the lender. Sometimes it's a sweet deal. Sometimes you need to read the fine print. And we're also going to lay out a story where a client of ours actually was promised something and not delivered. Let's get into the video right now. Okay, so as we all know, the builders make it super enticing to go with them. Bring on Aaron, broker extraordinaire in the Sacramento area. And these incentives are crazy, Aaron, man. People are throwing cash at them left and right. Got this much for closing costs, this many points and everything too. Right now we're seeing it slow down a little bit because new homes are still very, very popular. But as far as incentives go, you and I have talked about it. And sometimes I've even gone through applications with people and like you see these things and you're like, man, I don't know, this cost is not even something that exists. This is all that stuff. So kind of lead us through a little bit of some of the things someone should be looking at when they get, they go through a builder and the builder's lender pre-approves them and they say, oh my God, and they give them this sheet of what their expenses or costs are. Like, what are the things they should be looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're working with the builder's lender, which the builder, by the way, they're going to require that you get pre-qualified, pre-approved with the builder's lender, which, by the way, guys, 9 times out of 10, the builder owns the lender. So it's all kind of under the same roof. And when they don't own the lender, that lender that is there, they're paying the builder to be there. So there's a financial incentive behind the scenes going on with the builder and the lender. But one of the things that you will find is that when you look at the loan estimate, which is the sheet Mark's talking about, that's a document, a standardized document that all lenders provide to consumers, basically up front that shows you, hey, this is the deal that we're offering to you, right? And what you will find is that although that loan estimate will reflect a builder's incentive or a seller credit or however they advertise it, what you'll also find is in the first section, box A, which is the top section, very beginning of it, you're going to find all these basically like what I would call junk fees or overinflated fees. Like if you were going to compare that loan estimate against any other loan estimate out there, you're going to notice that the builder's lender, for some odd reason, charges a whole bunch of fees that nobody else charges. Things like application fees, they literally call it a builder fee, incentive fee, all these different fees that are not very standardized. I mean, it's pretty common to pay what's called an underwriter fee when doing a loan, sometimes even a processing fee, but the builders will tack on a ton of fees. The other thing that they'll do is that anytime you're getting a mortgage with the interest rate, there's either a cost or a credit associated with that interest rate. And what you'll find is that the rate that builders offer most of the time come with a bunch of cost, a bunch of points basically. And if you were to compare that interest rate to the open market, you could get that rate without all of those points. So the dirty little secret basically is that the builder incentive, it's not really much of an incentive. It's more of like, window candy to get you, interested, to get you locked into the deal. Because when you really look at the math on everything, you end up spending the builder credit on a bunch of fees that you wouldn't spend if you weren't using the builder's lender. But they're going to use tactics. They're going to scare you into believing that other lenders won't be able to close on time, that other lenders won't be able to understand the construction process, and that they're building spaceships basically, and it's really complicated, and that nobody except the builder's lender is going to be able to really, understand how to get this done. And so they kind of play a little bit of psychological warfare with you, along with this kind of shell game of like, hey, we're hooking you up with this huge credit, but don't pay attention to all the fees that we're charging over here. The builder business is a dirty business, but they're the only game in town basically. They got a monopoly. And because of the inventory situation, they get to kind of do whatever they want. It's just the way it is.
Well, and here's another thing too, just to make it clear out there. We're not saying that the builders incentive might not be the best deal in town. A lot of times it is, and that's just how it is. But we want you to know also to, get a little educated on what you're seeing, some of the costs that might be kind of bogus and everything too. So, I mean, they might be offering you a $5,000 credit. You might be comparing it to other lenders and it still might work out. So don't think it isn't. I'm just saying that what I've seen majority of the time is their incentives aren't as good as what they're offering. Where if they're offering $5,000 towards closing costs or whatever, that can be whittled down to maybe $2,000 or 3,000 or something like this. So at times it is hard to compete with the builder's lender because they're kind of in bed with the builder. But at the same time, what you normally see advertised seldom is exactly what it is. It's like, oh, this is what we're doing and this is what it is. And if you break it down a little bit, you're going to see costs that normally you're not going to see with other a regular lender. Like if you're buying a resale home, you're not going to see that. So just understand that we always encourage people to do one, get very educated about what they're seeing and don't just sign stuff. And number two, and this is a big one, do the Pepsi challenge where you bring in someone like an Aaron, someone like whoever else to kind of see them back to back and see what it works. Now, Aaron's worked with a lot of our clients. He's able to kind of go over the contracts, to look at the loan stuff and everything too. Just give him a little bit of a look if you are thinking about refinancing in the future, because he really does a great job with it, and his team even financed my house. So that's the best kudos I can give anyone. Okay, so now we're going to go into the idea of builders that own their mortgage companies. Majority of them do. Now, for me, it's kind of funny because when you're working with a lender, you're working with a broker, and you're trying to buy your house, 9 out of 10 times you want them to have your back. You should. I mean, they're the ones who are basically telling you this is the best rate. This is everything too. One of the things that I, for the most part, do not like is the idea that companies like Lennar, other companies out there, they own their own loan, they own their own broker, so the mortgage company. So basically, you jump in there, and sometimes it's named something different, so you don't really know if it's associated or not. But they don't really have your back in the situation, and it's like going to court and having a lawyer that really is playing for the other side, working with you. And so for me, understand this, you're going to get the hardcore press, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. And, they talk behind the scenes, builder and the lender, they talk behind the scenes. And in a normal real estate transaction, that's just not the way it works. You have your lender, they have their back. Sure, they're talking to the person selling the home, but they're not talking it like they're, oh, hey, let's do this, let's do that. So for me, it's just a little odd when you have that kind of closeness, right? You want someone who's got your back, your best interests. And for me, when, the builder that you're working with also owns a mortgage company, that always throws up red flags. And that's something for me I'm not a big fan of. What do you think, Aaron?
Oh yeah, there's zero separation of church and state when you look at the builder model. I mean, it's from a business standpoint, if you're not looking at it from what's best for the consumer, if you were looking at it just from the angle of what's a phenomenal business model to squeeze out every, dime you can out of a real estate transaction, the builder model is phenomenal. I mean, Lennar is the best in the business. They execute on it better than anybody else. But like I was saying beforehand, they charge all sorts of fees that nobody else charges, and their rates and products aren't as competitive. And the other thing in the monopoly of the builder ecosystem, you'll notice that most of them, they also either own or have a financial relationship with a title and escrow company that you have no choice of using. And if you compare the fees of that company to a, out in the market company, they charge way more for it. They do the same thing with homeowners insurance, although you don't have to use their people, but just like the builder's lender, the builder's insurance, they're going to put the hardcore press on you. And they own the solar company, which you don't get to shop for. I mean, they own everything, and it's a vertical integrated business basically. And there's, the purpose of that business is not to provide the lowest, cheapest deal to the consumer. It's to provide the easiest, mousetrap basically to maximize profits. And so there's definitely an odd thing about the builder relationship, for instance, with the lender is that, like when you go buy a house from a builder, you go to the sales office, like they've got the model homes and all that stuff. And, one of them set up as an office. Well, there's a sales manager that is the builder, that works there. Well, in a traditional lender relationship, like that loan officer that's based out of there, like that sales manager's not that person's boss. Like, in a resale world, like the loan officer doesn't report to the real estate agents, or, they're an independent, team member, if you will, of a collective group of independent professionals working together on the consumer's behalf to, accomplish the consumer's goal. Whereas the builder's lender, guess who that person reports to? And so when your deal starts going sideways, maybe you're backing out, maybe you're thinking about not using the lender, or whatever the case is, you're going to get the full court press by everybody on the builder's side, because they want you to ultimately use their products and services because they make more money doing it that way. So you definitely, like Mark likes to say, you got to do the Pepsi challenge out there and see, what's out there. At least check with one other company. I always recommend, check with a mortgage broker like New Way. They're going to get you the best deal. If you're looking for, lowest interest rate, lowest fees, shop around and do a comparison. So, that ultimately, if you're not getting the best deal, you at least know it. And, you're not going to find out down the road that, you could have saved money.
Well, the other thing too is like new homes right now are like more popular than they've ever been, especially in the Sacramento area, because we got land, we got low inventory. So you got builders like Taylor, Tri-Point, Woodside, Tim Lewis, Lennar, like everyone underneath the sun building here. So it's like, it can be a little confusing. And your normal person that maybe is coming in isn't like, oh, this is my 20th transaction, so I'm good to know, and I know this stuff. So they can get kind of bulldozed when it comes to like going through these. I mean, we're talking new home building contracts. A contract for a new home is like 211 pages, where like your standard like residential purchase agreement is around 15 pages. And it's like, it's easy. It's very dissectable, I guess you can call it, as far as being able to go through the fees, go through like all the contingencies and everything too. The builder contract's at like 211 pages, and it's just like people get so overwhelmed, and it's just like it doesn't have to be that complicated. So for me, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, you can break it up a little bit. You can explain why your loan contingency is out the window in 3 days. I mean, you can explain certain things, and the contract just kind of bewilders, just completely like is overwhelming for people. I mean, 211 pages, a person who's never gone through the process of buying a house, and they're throwing all these terms at them. They're saying this, they're saying that. People are seeing this like nice, pretty house, and they're like, oh, I just want the house. I'll sign whatever. Guys, I will tell you this straight up. 211 pages. I get it. Go through it. Be diligent. Work with the realtor that brought you in. Always, work with them, because they're getting a nice paycheck out of it. So they should be able to answer any questions you have regarding the contract. That's what they're there for. But definitely, like I said, guys, it's just an overwhelming situation. And also, like, Aaron and I have a good friend of ours who actually went through this process. Like around December, and he was promised something by I won't tell who. I think I already did, but he was basically going to and Aaron is one of his best buds too, and he was going to go with Aaron, but the builder incentive was so great that he went with these guys, and they were like, he's like, I'm with these guys. And Aaron was like, you should go with these guys based on what they're saying, what they're giving you. You should go. And Aaron will break down the story a little bit, but this is a straight up truth story that happened. What was it, like around December, January or something? And it just this is what happened. And so we kind of want you to know that we're not just spitting words out today. It's like, this is the reason why this story that we're about to tell you, or Aaron's about to tell you, is a reason why we're here talking a little bit about making sure that what the lenders are promising you is legit. Go through it and understand that it doesn't always work out like the fairy tale ending with some of these things too. Aaron, tell them a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, so that was actually just this last March. Time flies though. And a builder in Folsom, they had a phenomenal incentive going on, which of course they've canceled it, and they've, because builders are always changing incentives. It's a game of trying to get people to, come through the door basically. and they had a $25,000 incentive. And this was like I feel like the purchase price was like 550, 600,000, something like that. It was the, kind of the entry level models in Folsom Ranch. And, the 25 grand, I mean, that's from a percentage of the purchase price, it was like, almost 5%. That's a no brainer. And so when I was talking to my buddy about, this incentive and everything, I was asking him, hey, did the loan officer at the builder's lender, did they tell you like what you can do with this money? Like, is this really an incentive, like a credit that you could use? No different than like if you were buying a resale and the seller agreed to a seller credit, you're allowed to spend that on, buying your rate down, doing temporary buy downs, all sorts of stuff. And of course, the builder's lender, told him, yeah, you can do this, that, and the other, and basically, made it seem very flexible. And so when my buddy came back to me with, the kind of the checklist of all the questions I had, I was like, dude, that is a no-brainer. All right, so here's the next step. This is what you're going to go do. You're going to tell them that you want to do and I think we structured it was a 3-2-1 buy down, which gets your rate 3% lower for the first 3 years. And if, rates drop, you can refinance and get the difference back. Like, that's truly like your money. It'd be like the builder just handing you 25 grand basically. And so we figured out the math on it, how to structure it. Like I handed it to him to hand to his loan officer on a silver platter. Like if you're in my business and somebody came to you and they're, or to me, and they're like, hey, I want exactly this. This is how you're going to do it. I'm like, oh, sweet. You just did all the work for me. Like, thanks for making my life easy. Right. And instead, what he found was it was, besides the fact that it was not promptly delivered in terms of the information, like it'd always take him a week to get back to him, several days to get back to him, delaying, the timeline, and also the contingencies. You had mentioned like the contingencies run out like in 3 days, for instance. And one of the things is that with this exact scenario with my buddy, I told him, I said, hey, make sure to get that in writing. Get a loan estimate that shows, X, Y, and Z. And of course, he was trying to, get that. And the builder's lender had some funky reason why they weren't able to provide it for like 7 business days. But your loan contingency, like to back out, is only 3 days. So it's like all the games that they play in terms of the timelines and all that stuff, it's not set up for you, for the consumer. It's on the builder's end to be the winner. And so ultimately what ended up happening with my buddy is that after weeks and weeks and weeks of, a lot of back and forth and getting misinformation from the builder's lender, ultimately he found out that no, he couldn't use the builder's incentive to, pay for a temporary buy down like he was told he could, and that it could only be used to pay for the lender's closing costs. He couldn't even use the builder incentive to pay for the other fees on his transaction. So I'm like, dude, you're borrowing like $500,000. On no planet ever is there going to be $25,000 in lender fees. I mean, that's just absurd. But of course, this builder was able to come up with a, deal where they had like, literally, it was actually over it. It was like $26,000 in lender fees. And so he basically went with using that builder's lender because he thought he was going to be provided with this sweet deal. And ultimately, like, as the layers of the onion kept getting peeled back, it just got stinkier and stinkier. And by the time he found out really like, hey, this is actually what we're going to do for you, he was too far down the road. He couldn't back out without losing his deposit. And not to mention like your like quote unquote like emotional deposit, him and his wife, newlyweds, probably planning out their whole lives, their kids, all that stuff. They've already like mentally committed to all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then they're getting jerked around at the end of it, basically, is what happened. And it ultimately they went with the builder's lender. They took the absurd deal that they, you know, wasn't a good deal in terms of the financing and all that stuff, but they had no other choice, because otherwise they would have lost their deposit, you know, and they would have been, you know, emotionally upset over it. So left a bad taste in their mouth. And I guarantee you, when the time comes, even if it wasn't my buddy, they wouldn't be reaching out to the builder's lender for a refinance. They're going to go somewhere else. But regardless, make sure that you do go somewhere else for your refi, because the builder's not going to provide an incentive to the lender to refinance. They already got your business, and they're not going to provide a sweet deal. So you're better off shopping around there too.
Well, I mean, okay, that brings up a good point, right? Eventually, year from now, 2 years from now, whenever rates are going to drop. Mm-hmm. And normally what I find is like the builder's lender is going to do the hardcore press, try to get you in there again, because like he's got the intel, he knows what's up and everything too. So what we always, you know, what I would recommend to anyone who's like in the new home game, and, you know, the builder calls you up and goes, oh my God, guess what? We can get you down to a 5.4. You're going to save up that. Suck it up and just say, thank you very much. Send me exactly that. And then just do the Pepsi challenge as well too. Don't just take what they're giving. Understand that they're not calling you out of the goodness of their heart. They're calling you right now because they can make more money off you. Sure. So what I'm going to tell you straight up is, before you do the refi with the builder's lender, before you go that route, talk to a couple other lenders to make sure that you are getting the best deal. Because if it is, and if, you know, 2 years from now rates are down to 5 whatevers, and, you know, like, and you want to do it and you're going to save some money, the builder lender isn't the only game in town. You can go anywhere else and kind of look around. Go with Aaron. I mean, he's awesome. He's going to be doing a bunch of these because of the clients he's worked with and helped to get into great situations in the in new homes. So just understand that, just for the sake of sanity, don't, when you get that call 2 years from now and they're like, rates are down, oh my God, I can save you so much money. They're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. Shop around. It'll save you guys a whole lot more money. And if they were a headache to begin with, what do you think they're going to be like on the refi? So totally. I don't know. That's it. So Aaron, any parting words, anything out of your mouth that could help people if they're in a situation now, or if they're thinking, wow, this lender credit is awesome. Any parting words?
I would just recommend that you reach out to a third-party professional just for a second opinion, whether it's on the real estate side, on your contract, or on the lending side, on your loan estimate. You know, do the Pepsi challenge, because a lot of people just go with the first thing that's thrown at them, and that's not always the best deal.
Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you're thinking about moving to the Sacramento area, please reach out to our team. We would absolutely love to work with you. And if you're thinking about selling your home, we just sold our 8th home via YouTube. We'd love to work with you. Now, guys, we have a couple more videos just for you over here. And please do not forget to subscribe to the channel right over there. Until next video, guys, this is Mark. Have a good one.